Hello and welcome. Today we have a premier business partner with us, Navitas, talking about conserving resources and renewing buildings. I'm now turning it over to Ryan.
Thanks, Amber. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you with us. Today, we are talking about energy efficiency, energy construction, and data analytics, and how we can often help schools address facility challenges. With me today, I have myself. My name is Ryan Terry. I'm with Navitas. I'm one of our business development managers. Paul, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Paul Harrell, and I'm also a business development manager with Navitas.
Jay, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I'm Jay Harris. I'm the Executive Director of Operations for the Platte County R3 School District, and look forward to our conversation today.
Okay, so we're going to start talking just kind of a high level what energy efficiency, what performance contracting is, and what that mechanism looks like, and then trying to get down to a little more specifics of what examples, some project examples are, and how different school districts apply this financial mechanism. And then wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about data analytics and how our industry uses data to really improve our processes and make schools a little more successful in these kind of energy projects. So with that, I think, Paul, you want to take it away for a bit?
Yeah, I'd absolutely be glad to. Again, the topic is kind of doing more with less, specifically with school districts having limited financial resources. How do we keep more dollars in the classroom? So again, when we're looking for funds and balancing our resources, it can be very difficult for both the CFO and for a superintendent. And we try to help school districts make their dollars go further. What we try to do is work with school districts to turn over every rock and really leave no stone unturned when we're looking at ways to fund existing programs and find new ways of doing businesses for schools. Typically, about 80% of a school district's operating budget is tied up in salaries and benefits. Employee benefit costs continue to increase, and those are primarily from increases in health insurance and other purchase services and type expenditures. And specifically right now with the coronavirus pandemic, schools are not really sure what the new normal is going to be. So therefore, it's more important now than ever before to really try to balance these needs out. And the needs, again, come to us from students, what our enrollment will look like, both increases and decreases, our staffing, the number of FTE, what the work schedules might look like, what our facility and facility capacity issues will be, what are the age of your facilities, some of our technical challenges, how does remote learning come into play now, and it's kind of the job of the administration to bring it all together. So therefore, we have continued to look for methods to become more sustainable with our resources, and we've turned to further examining the amount schools spend on energy and utility costs. We want to go to the next slide, please. Today, school districts in the United States spend over $6 billion annually on utility costs to heat, cool, and light school buildings, which is more than what they spend on textbooks and technology combined. Within most school districts' operation and maintenance department budgets, utility costs are the second largest expenditure of the operating budget next to salaries. And within the state of Missouri, dollars spent on operation and plant per student is approximately 11% of current expenditures. And dollars spent on energy supplies and services amount to about 2.5% of the total current expenditures. What we'd like to do is work with school districts to see if we could reduce their utility consumption and corresponding utility expenditures. And if we were able to do this by about 25% reduction statewide, there'd be over $1.5 billion that could be redirected annually to Missouri schools over the next 15 years. Ryan, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah, sure. So I guess before we get too far into this, I thought it would be good to kind of define what we're talking about and what the financial mechanism is, this performance contracting concept. And I'm not going to read verbatim how the U.S. Department of Energy defines performance contracting, but in a nutshell, and maybe simpler, what I would say is that it's a performance contract uses energy savings to create a funding mechanism to address facility needs. And so Just to kind of give you a perspective, the performance contracting industry, or our industry, does about $10 billion a year in the U.S. A lot of that is in the federal side. The federal government uses this a lot on like Army bases, but it can be applied to and is often applied to K through 12 school districts. Just because, like Paul said, there's a lot of need. We're always asked to do more with less, and this can be a way to extend maintenance dollars in effect. So that's when you see the acronym EPC or GEPC, that's Energy Performance Contract or Guaranteed Energy Performance Contract. Then ESCO is what we kind of call ourselves in the industry, an energy services company, and that's just folks and companies that do this kind of work. And just for perspective, there's quite a few companies in Missouri that are actively doing this kind of work. Probably, I would say between half a dozen and a dozen or so that are pretty active. So it is a kind of a concept that's caught on quite a bit the last few years in the state of Missouri. So again, to kind of further define what we're talking about here, some unique aspects of a guaranteed energy performance contract is that the ESCO ends up taking on some of the takes on all the financial risk to these kind of projects. So our job is to go in and find ways to save energy and then guarantee that savings. And so if there's a shortfall, companies like us will either have to write a check or they would try to remedy the situation. For example, if we said, we're going to change these light fixtures out and we measured them before and the energy consumption is X, and we say, well, it's going to come back and at the end of the job, energy consumption by replacing these lights is going to be Y. Well, if we don't meet that, we either need to change the lights to make them work and meet that savings, or we have to write a savings shortfall check. In concept, that's how the mechanism works. So it gives recourse to school districts if there's not enough savings, so they have money to pay off any loan mechanism that is used. Another aspect that's maybe not unique to performance contracting, but the way this process works in Missouri is that we are essentially kind of a design build company, where there's one source of accountability where we design the project, evaluate and find ways to save energy, and then implement that work and then guarantee the results. So graphically, I kind of like this slide. It depicts what we do, and also note here the statute that we work under, the RSMO 8.231. And actually, in that statute, it's if you Google that, you can see the eligible type of projects that can be funded through this mechanism. And it's quite an extensive list. Mostly, to simplify, it's mostly anything that consumes energy or wastes energy, like a window or roof. If energy can escape through it, then we can improve it. The statute does not talk about new buildings, but it does, again, most renovation work and even some security and safety work can be included. But you should consult with your attorneys to kind of discuss different possibilities if you have questions, or talk to us about it as well. But in concept, this kind of depicts what this process looks like. Is companies like us will look for savings in your budget from both utility budget, maintenance operation budget, and a capital budget, and that creates the funding source. So savings from a utility budget, again, it could be anything from lighting to replacing windows and roofs. We also, I would say, rebates fall under that category. We get a lot of rebates from a lot of different utilities, and so we know it's not always an easy, straightforward process. So that's something that companies like us can help navigate and get you the most rebate possible. Again, in concept of maintenance operational savings, if you swap out old equipment that consumes a lot of maintenance dollars, that can create a funding source as well. Or if you don't have to replace as many lights because LEDs last longer, that is also a savings source. So again, in concept, what we're doing is we're creating the funding source to help schools address facility needs. So one of the questions we always get in these presentations is, so how does that really work? Logistically, where do we get that money? So Paul, do you want to take that question since you've kind of sat in that role before with school districts?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Well, again, typically after an ESCO, which is an energy service company, would go into a school district and do an investment grade audit known as an IGA. We'd really look at all of the kind of deferred maintenance items that have the possibility of reducing utility cost, meaning the electric, the gas, the water and sewer, and also other types of operational efficiencies. And after really a complete study is made and in discussions with the district on specifically how they'd like to move forward, we can kind of estimate what those costs and savings would be. And typically we take them out over a 15-year period of time. And by amortizing that over that length of a period of time, there's usually thousands, if not millions of dollars available to school districts to really work with financial institutions to see how they can leverage those dollars and make those investments and upgrades up front. So typically what happens, again, the ESCO determines what types of savings are available. And then the school district can work with the ESCO and then also their financial companies, whether it's financial institutions, typically banks, to really maybe issue a lease purchasing finance agreement. And then by doing that, typically school districts can gain access to those dollars. The dollars are then put into an escrow account by the financial institution. And as the ESCO, the energy service company, really performs the construction and implements the energy saving mechanisms, the school district is able to draw out of those dollars from the ESCO to pay for the project. So in reality, the savings are calculated, they're estimated over a 15-year period of time. The school district is able to get access to those dollars, typically through a lease purchase financing agreement, and then pay the agreement off back to the lender over a 15-year period of time. But the savings typically would come out of the operating fund, but DESI allows for a transfer of those savings from the operating fund into the capital projects fund so that the payments can be made. So it's a relatively easy process. There's several steps involved, but nevertheless, it's a fantastic way to fund many of your deferred maintenance programs that otherwise would have taken years to be able to generate the dollars to pay for the improvements. Okay, moving on here to the next slide, we're really kind of talking about energy efficiency and kind of the untapped resources. So really all around us, embedded in every building is a vast untapped energy source, really is known as efficiency. And our goal is to help clients understand energy efficiencies and take advantage of this potential by looking at energy consumption, building usage, equipment operation, building automation systems, human behavior and operating plans, and looking at renewable energy solutions. So the goal is to bring together in a comprehensive manner strategies to reduce energy consumption by at least 25%. And to do this, we look at all the areas that are displayed on the bar chart on your screen. And again, what we'd like to do is kind of develop a comprehensive approach rather than a piecemeal approach. So within every department within a school district, every department, I should say, within a school district has an impact on energy consumption, whether it be the classrooms, the administrative offices, the cafeteria, transportation, your IT departments, operation and maintenance. So together, all of those have major impacts on your utility consumption. And what we like to do is help our clients develop comprehensive plans to, one, reduce age and failing equipment, to engage departments throughout the district to do their part to operate as efficiently as possible, and to implement and improve building operating plan with all departments that have an impact on energy use, and develop energy efficient strategies that support concepts supported by the Board of Education all the way down throughout the organization. And as an example, we work with school districts all across the United States, but specifically some of the ones here in Missouri. Here's an example of the North Kansas City School District. I used to be the CFO and the deputy superintendent of the district, so I implemented the program while I was working there. But nevertheless, the school district is typical of many districts across the state of Missouri where we have newer buildings and there were older buildings. And actually the average age of the buildings within the North Kansas City School District is actually over 50 years of age. However, there is energy issues in buildings, whether they're new or old. And again, working with an ESCO, what we really try to do is, for the first time ever, tackle our energy consumption and see how we can operate those buildings as efficiently as possible and then maybe the savings that we were able to generate used to fund a deferred maintenance plan. So one of the first things that happened would be to go in there. We were able to take a baseline. It's called a baseline EUI, which is Energy Utilization Index. We did it before the program starts and then as the program's implemented. And today, there's about 28 buildings within the North Kansas City School District that are Energy Star rated, meaning after we've gone through the program, these 28 buildings are in the top 25 percentile of all schools nationwide as far as their energy consumption. So many are even in the top 5%. So it doesn't matter, again, whether the buildings are old or new. There's certainly ways and opportunities for the buildings to operate more efficiently.
And Paul, I would add in, interesting about Staley, that one that we're showing an example of was a LEED certified building. It's pretty new. If anybody's ever seen Staley, it's a beautiful building. But even though it's relatively new, there's still quite a bit that we could implement in energy saving strategies. It was designed efficiently, but there's ways that we could improve the efficiencies and how it operated. And so, we get the question a lot: is if it's a brand new building, maybe we can't do much. Well, that's not always the case. Sometimes old buildings are more efficient than new buildings. Just interesting. As I've done this for a number of years, sometimes you just never know until you really evaluate it.
Okay, moving on to this slide right here, specifically some results for the North Kansas City School District over a period of time. The first graph really is the Energy Utilization Index, and it goes all the way back to the 2011 school year and goes all the way up to the 2017-18 school year. But you can see before the program was implemented and then after the program, specifically the reduction in both the Energy Utilization Index as well as electricity, gas, and water. But most importantly, the Energy Utilization Index, for the most part, was close to 70 before the program was implemented. And after, again, a comprehensive approach to ways to specifically reduce the electric, gas, water consumption, we were able to significantly reduce that energy utilization index. So overall, the district has had a 35% reduction in its energy consumption, while at the same time adding square feet. So this program was actually funded nearly $29 million of construction. In addition to that, there's about $1.5 million in utility incentives and rebates that were available. So the reduction in the energy consumption funded the improvements. And looking at the dollars here on this slide here, we've got, again, a construction year in year 1, 2, 3, and 4 of how long the program's been implemented. And the total projected utility savings was nearly $4.5 million. But the project, as it's been implemented, has performed better than that. Again, just looking at a 25% reduction in utility expenditures generated that about $4.5 million worth of savings. But the district itself has achieved over 35% reduction in their total utility consumption, which has given the project an additional surplus of $2.9 million. So the total savings to date has been about $7.4 million. And again, these dollars were reinvested back into the district's facilities themselves, rather than having to be paid out through utility bills. So again, over maybe a fun fact is, through 3 years of the program, the North Kansas City School District has reduced the equivalent CO2 of passenger driving vehicles over 67 million miles.
Well, Jay, you want to take it over for a bit?
Sure, and thank you guys for sharing those examples. Platte County R3 School District is a smaller school district than North Kansas City, but provides a great example of how we were able to utilize the financing mechanism that Paul had just described to make some significant improvements to the Platte County R3 schools. We have about 4,300 students and 8 buildings, And because of our work in year one, we're able to have 5 of those 8 buildings Energy Star rated. And prior to this, did not have any. And so you can see the list of projects there on this slide that cost a little bit over $5 million. We did some interior and exterior lighting upgrades. We replaced a lot of our aging HVAC infrastructure, implemented some controls to allow us to manage and monitor energy usage 24/7, implemented some commissioning of that equipment to make sure it was operating efficiently, implemented some water efficiency opportunities, and also did some weatherization around doors and windows. And again, all of that was a little over $5 million worth of work and allowed us some pretty significant improvements in energy. And we'll show you that on the next slide. So when you look at this slide, and as Paul indicated earlier, the Energy Utilization Index, or EUI, which is essentially your energy usage per square foot, you can see the baseline numbers, which this was how we were performing prior to these upgrades, are listed in orange, and they show you, how we were performing. And then after the improvements, you can see the decrease in energy usage there listed on the green bar. And then if you look at, for example, out of those buildings, Segrist Elementary School had a significant reduction in energy usage because of the upgrades that were made. And in average, after the first couple of years, we were averaging over 30% reduction in usage. And so we felt pretty good about the upgrades and felt pretty good about the numbers we were getting based on that. And so this breakdown on this slide really shows you a 12-month overview of all of our buildings in the district. And again, as mentioned previously, you can see the significant reduction in energy use. And what's really important about part of this program is making sure that you are tracking your data and monitoring your progress on a regular basis. So that was something that was important to us. And when you think about a score of below 50 is typically what qualifies you to be an Energy Star rated facility. We didn't have any of those prior to this improvement. And in year one, 5 of our 8 buildings qualified. And since then, more have come on board. So we see the value in this. We also see the value in tracking our data and monitoring our progress. And the other opportunities when you do this, when things are not operating efficiently, because sometimes that happens with equipment, we can identify that, and we can identify that and make adjustments as we go to make sure that we're finding those efficiencies that are important for our work. And so as Paul talked about the North Kansas City School District results, you can see in the Platte County R3 School District, we also had some very favorable energy results. You can see in those first couple of years, we were able to surpass our projected savings by a pretty significant number. And so, over $1.4 million, almost $1.5 million, we realized in savings. And to put that in perspective, that was almost a third of our initial investment into this program. We were able to save in the first 3 years. So certainly speaks to the volume of the program and the fact that we're right on track, even performing even better than our projections, to be able to find these savings that will certainly pay for these improvements and continue to provide savings on into the future.
So, Jay, did you have anything else? I don't want to cut you off.
I guess the only thing I would add would be, what makes this program work is certainly finding the right partner. And as discussed earlier, conducting a facility assessment. We really wanted to look at our efficiencies over time. So think about life cycle costing of your equipment and making sure that you are making good decisions that not only help you today, but also over a number of years. And then when you identify a plan and implement that plan, it's important to track and monitor that progress. I also would offer that it's important to communicate your results, and not only to your staff, so they can be educated in the process and also support the program, but also to your community, identifying how you are providing value to tax dollars by making sure you're making good decisions and becoming more efficient.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. I would agree with that. I think that whatever company you use, if you're evaluating this kind of program, I think one of the keys that should be on any kind of solicitation for this kind of company is evaluate how companies demonstrate energy savings, improve energy savings. I think it's important for administrators, like Jay said, it's important for the community, it's important for the school board, it's important for folks inside the buildings, that we're not compromising comfort to get energy savings, but still being able to prove that we maintain comfort and are able to get energy savings. So one of the things to kind of wrap up, we're trying to keep this closer to 30 minutes. So kind of share a little bit of what our industry is doing and what we're doing specifically in terms of data analytics and using information to really use data to drive decisions in buildings. So we can kind of be unemotional about it. And, we get questions a lot about, is it really more efficient to set temperatures down at night because those units just have to run more in the morning to catch up? And we can show what the data shows for those units, for that building, to say, here's the optimal temperature to set. So this is just an example. I know there's a lot of information, but this is kind of a dashboard of what we look at. We're looking at real-time energy information at the top one. If I could have a pointer, I would kind of show you, but that top graph is, you can see the utility consumption 5 days, and then kind of it's almost a flat line, like a heartbeat over the weekend. And then there's temperature data. There's analytics of how the particular units are running, whether economizer modes are on, whether the units are on or off, or that those bars at the bottom. Point is, there's a lot of information that we're gathering to drive information, to drive decisions. So this is just one example I showed to a school board a while back. That the difference between one building, when it had units running that were not supposed to. So you see the utility consumption at the top of those graphs, kind of a erratic. I guess kind of follows a pattern, but then it has high usage during the day, then it goes down at night. And then if you can see a horizontal line on each of those graphs, we find that utility consumption should be, or electric consumption should be, around 0.4 to 0.5 watts a square foot in any school building at night when it is unoccupied. And if it's not, it represents an opportunity to save. So this was after the project was over. We had a mechanical contractor and controls contractor pointing their finger at each other saying, well, our stuff is running the way it should. We found out that it wasn't, and we showed this to the school district, so we were able to remedy the situation while it was under warranty, actually. And so you can see the difference. That horizontal line on the bottom graph there, the utility consumption kind of bumps up against that bottom graph most of the time at night. And so that shaded area all represents savings from the week in June versus the week in August. And so that equates in this particular building to $1,300 a week. So you extrapolate that out over a year, and that can be $60,000 or more over a year. So it's pretty powerful information to use this data. And then, we can show the school board. I show this to the school board, and they can see the difference in what we're doing. And I think, in my experience, the school board folks and community members like to see this kind of stuff and prove out the decisions that they made on doing these kind of projects. So I'm going to skip over a couple here to get to this. This is one more example of North Kansas City. This is after our project was over. This is the utility consumption of every single building across the district, kind of all over the place. So after a few months of optimizing that space, we had all of our buildings pretty much running the way they should. It had a few outliers that had activities at night or on a Sunday, which is okay, but we want to be below that red line of 0.4 or 0.5 watts a square foot, and most of these buildings are, and we try to continue to improve. So ultimately, if you're interested in this kind of process, there's a lot of, like I said earlier, there's a lot of companies out there that do this in Missouri. But typically, companies like us will do a no-cost preliminary analysis. And that really is evaluating utility bills, typically maybe doing a cursory look at your buildings to evaluate the feasibility study. And typically, that is done at no cost. Then you have to go through a selection process to pick a company like us. And again, no money is exchanged hands. And once you select a company, typically, and you partner with somebody, typically there's what we call in the industry an IGA, an investment grade audit. And that typically comes with a cost. And the result of that study is a design that can be implemented into a construction contract and implemented. And that has a cost to it. If the school district decided not to move forward, that there would be a cost. And then ultimately moving from that into a construction contract into the green, companies like us would then manage that construction. We'd then measure and verify savings, and then ensure savings are continue to improve. And what we found, North Kansas City and Platte County being no different, is we're typically able to get more savings the second and third year as we continue to hone the operation and help educate folks in the building space how buildings can be operated most efficiently while maintaining the functionality is pretty important to us. So with that, typically we'd have kind of a question and answer. We all three of us are certainly willing and able, would love to answer questions about this, whether it's interest in the mechanism, whether you're already talking to a company and have questions. More than anything, we want to promote this mechanism in the state because I think it has a lot of value to our schools in Missouri. So feel free to reach out to Paul or myself, certainly Jay as well. He's done a couple of these projects, not only at Platte County, but also at RAPEC, and has seen this done a couple different ways. So he's probably a good resource as well. So with that, anything else, guys, Paul or Jay, that you'd like to add?
No, we're sorry that we couldn't be at the MoASBO conference in person, but again, we certainly wanted to visit with you and try to share as much information we possibly could through this webinar. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I would just reiterate what Ryan said, that feel free to reach out. If you start down this journey and you have questions, we are here to help. We can give you, the things that have gone really well for us, the things we wish we'd have done differently. But I will say all in all, I've done this, as Ryan said, I've done this twice, had two excellent projects that we've been pretty thankful to be a part of. But if you got questions along the way, don't hesitate to reach out. Be happy to help.
All right, agree with that. Thanks, everybody, and hope to talk to you soon. See you hopefully next year for MoASBO.